Hey there, everybody. It is your buddy Choppadong. Welcome into July 8th. I'm fresh back from vacation. I'm ready to rock and roll again. And you don't come back from vacation without new ideas that you've cooked up and you want to test out. So I'm going to introduce Power Score to you today from the notorious Smallaballa here at DFSArmy.com. One-stop shopping, all things daily fantasy sports. We've got you covered. I would encourage you, if you're an NFL player, to look at our NFL-only package. If you're already a DFS Army VIP, it's included. But if you're looking for a place to go for your fantasy football this year, from season long to DFS to best balls to tiers to whatever the hell you want to play, we have an all-inclusive NFL-only package for you on the website that you're going to want to check out. I'll put the link in the description of the video along with everything else that I talk about today, but we will dive into Power Score here starting right now. It's super, super simple. Power Score looks like this. Or if you look at our Discord rooms, I've already posted it for everybody, it looks like this. What is Power Score? Well, Power Score is simply just a couple of numbers added together that are going to indicate which teams maybe have a better chance than others at going off tonight. And what we're looking for is those guys that go off at lower ownerships, because we don't want to be fighting with as many people at the top of the leaderboard when we do get there, when we are correct, and when we did make the right call on a slate for this night. I like to organize my teams in terms of W score. I go into the research station, I click on the pitchers tab, I make sure that the only teams that are showing are teams that are on this particular slate, and I slide into the chop shop and I drop in the W score from top to bottom. I use K score for pitchers. I've already shown people how to do that for weeks and weeks and weeks. However, W score for hitters is another way to go about things, because it shows a score of WOBA allowed by the pitcher and the WOBA that a team produces, a team offense. When you get a good, strong team going up against a bad pitcher that struggles to get people out, that's a target. It sounds like it's elementary, but not everybody uses it. They like to use just the Vegas numbers, just the implied run totals, etc., because they're lazy. They're not really thinking about what else comes into play and what else should I be using to create maybe an apples to apples comparison between the New York Yankees, the LA Dodgers, and the Detroit Tigers, because sometimes the Detroit Tigers are in a smash spot. The question is, can they do anything with it? Sometimes they do. Look, last night, Chris Paddock got thrown a loop and Washington crushed him and was in all the winning stacks last night. There are outliers to everything that we do, but generally speaking, we're putting ourselves in good positions if we target pitchers that can't get people out or give up high WOBAs, and we use teams that do the damage, that have high WOBAs as an offense when they match up and when they line up, just like the stars in the solar system, right? So here's all I'm doing is I'm organizing these teams based off the research station in this order right here. The opponent is what I'm looking at. So when I go into this team, it's in that order, right? And now what I've done is I've taken the opposing pitcher's Sierra, the bullpen Sierra, and the Vegas implied run totals. And I've just removed the decimal points, and I've added them up. I've got a Sierra of 5.0 for the Detroit starting, or for the whoever Detroit's facing, for the starting pitcher tonight. Let's go back just really quickly so we don't confuse people. Who would it be? It's J-Hap. J-Hap has a rounded 4.98, becomes a 5.0, becomes a 50. However you want to score it yourself. I just like using round numbers. But there's where that number comes from in the Sierra. It's a 50, 4.98. It's 50 for J-Hap. Detroit's facing him. He sucks right now based on recent data. We need to be targeting him. The bullpen. Where do we find that? We go to the research station. This time you got to switch tabs. You've got to use the Fanduel hitters tab, and you've got to slide over here to the bullpen rankings. And you've got to be organizing. I did this one just in alphabetical order, Z to A for this team, or A to Z, this column, whatever the hell I did. I clumped all the teams, all the guys together on the same team so that I can really just get all the bullpen numbers the same, because the bullpen facing that team is going to be the same from no matter what, whether it's Trey Mancini or Austin Hayes or Cedric Mullins or who, they're all facing the same bullpen numbers. That's how I did it. I just looped that number together. And what I did was I wrote that number in here. So 39, right? Whoever Baltimore is facing, or whoever, 39. That's the bullpen rating for Baltimore. Simple, right? Now, what I've got is I've got three equal factors here, and the implied run total comes right out of here, the main slate numbers, 6.4. 6.4 for Toronto tonight. So, and that number changed. Holy cripes, that number changed. If I wanted to update this, I could. It's not going to change by much. If I change this to a 64, it goes up 3 points. This becomes a 152. And the 152, great. It's still going to be tops on the slate, right? So it doesn't, let's kind of, keep our lid on for just a second here and figure that whatever changes we make, they're going to change the rankings around a little bit. But if a 116 becomes a 118, did it really change much with the order he's in? No. So we can maybe look a little closer to lock when we talk about Scott's locks. Scotty's last minute locks is his system, and he likes to use ownerships. That's fine. I did that earlier this year too. Didn't win shit with it. Actually, I did. I'm teasing. It means everybody's going to have their different way of doing things, okay? And not to rip on Scott. Scott's on a hot streak. Why is Scott on a hot streak? Because he has a system, and because he doesn't change, and because he sits under that shade tree with that beer and waits for the wave to come to him. He's not out there on a surfboard chasing this wave and that wave and constantly falling down, wiping out, and getting eaten by sharks. He's sitting under the tree waiting for the wave to come to him. That's all variance is for you guys. If you've got the bankroll, you properly manage it, and you're letting the wave come to you. This is just another way of doing it. And I don't mean to throw you 4 or 5 different systems because I'm trying to confuse you. I'm just throwing you a few different ways so you can pick one that makes the most logical sense to you and stick with it. Ride it like a wave until it comes to you. Okay? So Vegas has the implied run total, and these all come into play as well. I've equally weighted them, right? Starting Sierra, bullpen Sierra, Vegas, implied run total, and then you just add them up. 51 plus 41 plus 45 is 136. 46 plus 39 plus 61 is 149. This overall number is telling me right now, it's telling me who's facing a bad pitcher, who's facing a bad bullpen, and who Vegas agrees with, who Vegas thinks, oh, I see that. I like this team. I'm going to give them a lot of potential tonight. That's all that's doing. So I'm using a little bit of all the Vegas experts, and I'm using some raw numbers for both the starter and the bullpen. And I've come up with this power score number, which just is going to put these guys, it's going to be largely in order. As you can see, the top are pretty much to the top. That's the WOBA, that's the W score, right, that we use that says the pitcher gives up a high WOBA and the hitters hit for a high WOBA. Well, that should stand to reason that when they're in a good matchup, it's because the opposing pitcher sucks. It's because the bullpen sucks. It's because Vegas likes them. It all points in the same general direction. That's all we're showing you. But I'm just showing you different ways to interpret these things. When I'm alone, my mind wanders, and it starts creating up these different ways, mostly to compare these teams. So I can compare Detroit to Toronto, to Cincinnati, to Minnesota, to Milwaukee, and I can see, okay, so the starting pitchers aren't everything, but the starting pitchers, Milwaukee's facing a little tougher matchup than, say, Detroit. Bullpens, though, they're all about equal, right? Until I come down here and 36, somebody, Cleveland's facing a pretty good bullpen. They might want to get to the starter. It's a pretty good starter, too, at a 40. So that's why their number is going to be a little bit lower. Vegas seems to think that they're going to score some runs today, maybe not as many as Toronto, but more than Washington, more than Pittsburgh. So who's going to win out? That's why they land middle of the pack. And we're just trying to figure out who's got the toughest matchups on the day. San Diego, low starting pitching Sierra, pretty low bullpen, low implied run total out of Vegas. Vegas doesn't have a lot of faith in them, so they're one of the lowest, if not the lowest on the slate. That's why. It makes logical sense. And that's all we're doing. Now, we know baseball's random. And we know baseball is like the chalk fails all the time, right? Toronto's going to be chalk tonight. No matter what you look at, it's pointing at Toronto. So your question should be, how often do I think Toronto breaks the slate? And if they're going to be massively owned by everybody, am I willing to gamble against that? Can I live with being wrong? Because you're going to be wrong a lot in baseball. So all you're really looking at here is, here are the numbers, here's what everything says, and then I'm going to use maybe the ownerships to say, look, everybody's forgetting about Detroit, and by God, they got the second highest power score on the slate. I'm going to focus on Detroit tonight. Now, is Detroit going to win? There is no guarantee. You saw Washington last night destroy Chris Paddock. I mean, that came out of the blue. Can San Diego break this? They've certainly got the talent to do it. They'd have to destroy a pretty good starting pitcher to do so, though. Can they? I don't know. Most of the time they probably won't, but on occasion they will. If San Diego played, whoever this pitcher is, say, I don't know, 100 times, There's probably 5 or 10 times when they are the best offense on the slate that night. There's probably 5 or 10 times they're the worst offense on the slate. And there's probably a whole bunch in between. That's what we're looking at. That's the game you're playing. And all you're trying to do is get all of these guys shuffled up. You don't even have to look at these numbers if you don't want to. If you wanted to just randomly mix everybody, you probably would do just fine. But I like to put a little bit of weight to my teams that I like, to Toronto, Detroit, Minnesota, it looks like tonight. Maybe some Kansas City down here. They're going to slip under the radar, no doubt. And there's indicators that show they might be in a good spot tonight. Maybe Cincinnati, whatever. These are the types of teams that I'm going to be trying to put some weight on. So I'm going to organize these my way. How do I do it? Well, I've got the spreadsheet. I've got the power. I'm just going to organize this Z to A and ba-boom. There's my order tonight. That wasn't too hard, was it? Now, somebody like Scott is going to use ownership, and he's going to come straight up in here and just run them however they're owned based off of the leverage stacks tool or whatever. And you could certainly use leverage stacks and just run the straight order there and put your weights on it that way. It depends on how much time you have, depends on how big a nerd you are, depends on how much you want to control the situation. But we're all doing largely the same thing. We're using a method of comparing these teams together, figuring out which teams stand out, which teams we want to focus on, and hoping we're right. So if this is my order, I'm going to put, maybe 15 to 20% on these top 2 teams, maybe 10 to 15% on these next 3 or 4, maybe 5 to 10% on these guys, maybe 1 to 2% on these guys. And then I'm going to make sure all those numbers that I pick add up to 100%. And I've got every team covered, and every lineup in the optimizer comes out stacked, because if it totals 100%, it's going to use 100% of the lineups in a stack. And that's what I want. And there's different ways to do that. I've shown them in videos. You can use the minimum percentages. You can use ranges from, if you want 15% on a team, you can put between 13 and 17%, whatever. There's a jillion ways to use these tools and get what you want. But you've got to get good at creating that game plan here, looking at something like this, and then translating that into what you want to do, what you want your teams, what your lineups to look like. And that's all MME is. It's casting a net. You see, let's go back to a fishing analogy. You see those guys out in the ocean in knee-deep water. They've got that big net, and they fling it out in that big old circle, and they're trying to catch fish with it, right? There's a jillion fish in the ocean. They can't catch them all. They're hoping to catch the one that happens to be swimming under that circle that they cast. That's all we're trying to do. We're hoping that the circle that we cast, the net that we cast out into the ocean of possible combinations of lineups, we're hoping to catch the big ones. And that's it. And the bigger net you throw, the bigger your chances, but the harder that net is to manage. If you're playing a 3-max tournament, there's no way you can cast a big enough net to cover all of the bases. If you're playing a 20-max, you can do more than you can in a 3-max, but you still can't cover it all. You're probably only using 2, 3, 4 offenses and mixing and matching those. And you're hoping you're right. But if you get all the way out to a full 150 lineups, now you can probably cover on almost every slate. You can probably cover pretty big swaths of combinations. And you're hoping still that those combinations are right. Maybe you like Chicago Cubs more than Toronto tonight. Maybe you're saying Toronto's going to be over-owned. If all of those guys fail, I don't want to be there. I'd rather be over here. I'll have a better chance at winning. And so you cast a larger portion of your net over in that direction. That's all this is. So we don't need to worry too much about numbers. We've got some Sierra and some bullpens and stuff, but we don't need to worry about, if the guy hits better during the day or left-handed or whatever, because he's really just part of our stack. He's really just part of our offense that we're targeting tonight. We want the offense to do well, and we hope we caught the right bats in it. Last night in the Washington offense, there were a couple of Miami's offense, or Washington, one of the two I looked at. There were 3 dudes that hit a home run. Lead off, 4th hole, and like 7th or 8th hole. Nobody's going to have that stack 1, 4, 8, right? But if you had it last night, you did really, really well. So it's just about catching that offense and hoping that you had the right stack in it, and you did it with both teams, and you got the pitcher right, and that's what this is. It's a hard game to play. It's a hard game to be good at, but what we've done is we've simplified it by showing you maybe who to target, leverage, ownership, power score, whatever you want to use. We've shown you how to target them, setting up Domination Station with the minimum exposures or with the team rankings or whatever, and then we're just letting you use the optimizer and letting it eat. The system works. You just have to go grab your beer, go sit under a shade tree, and let the wave come to you. Don't chase your tail. Don't chase the waves. Let the wave come to you. This is Chop-A-Dog, July 8th. Peace out, homies. We'll see you on the leaderboards.